All right, thanks everyone. Welcome, and thank you for coming to our session. This is a session on winning the mid-market with Mentor's IC Full Flow. I am Greg Lebsack, GM of the ICDS division. Our group, as you'll see here, supports the Tanner product. We also support the ICDS product or the Pixis product as well too. But in this presentation, we're really going to focus on Tanner. Tanner is where our development and R&D is going. We'll share part of that. We'll share directions that we're going and give you kind of an introduction to Tanner as well as understand our capabilities and why we think there's a lot of great opportunity in this space. So we've been dealing in more and IoT for quite some time, and we think there's tremendous opportunity in this space as you start to look at custom analog and mixed signal designs really dominate IoT, autonomous driving, and the intelligent sensors systems. And what's also interesting about this is that our competition is choosing to deploy resources and invest in other areas, right? So our competition are very heavily focused on advanced nodes. And in this growing IoT market space, that creates a great opportunity for us. Accounts are being neglected, opportunity is there, and we'll show you where we've had some success and how we've been able to do that. And so what we've done is we've created Tanner as an IoT design platform, and we are integrating with a lot of Mentor's best-in-class point tools, and we're developing a solution that has, a great total cost of ownership and the ability to go and displace our competition in these accounts. So you'll hear a lot more about that in the next 45 minutes as we go through the presentation. So from an agenda perspective, we're going to walk through a few different sections here right now, and we'll have other members of the team come up and present. So I'll start with a quick overview of FY19 and some of the successes we had. Jeff Miller, one of our product marketing managers, will get up, give an overview of really this market space and our product flow and how we fit into this space. John Peloso from the TSS organization is going to come up and talk about the ATM and AEs that we have in the organization and really how he will engage and work to help make you successful in your accounts. We've got one of our account managers help create a video for us, so we'll share his success using it. And then finally, John Stabino will follow up with kind of field of use, so really where is our sweet spot, where do we focus, where can we go in, where do we stay out of, and then also talk about lessons learned. Hopefully he'll be coming up in an Elvis costume as well too. We'll wait and see. And then we'll finish it off with a Q&A. So real quickly as a review of last year, Bill Heiser had these comments on the main stage, and I'll just kind of echo them. It was a good year for Tanner last year. We exceeded our revenue target, but we had great bookings growth. And that certainly is attributed to all of you, or many of you sitting out in the audience right now, kind of trusting Tanner to go in and be an IoT platform for your customers. And we'll talk a lot about what that means. But the chart on the right can start to define a little bit of IoT, of what we really mean by that, right? And it's everything from connected homes and connected vehicles to wearables, the industrial internet, and smart cities. So it's a very broad kind of space, but there's a lot of opportunity within there, and we'll drill down more into that and let you understand that. The other thing we did in 19 as well too is we learned better how to go and displace Virtuoso. They're obviously a dominant player in this space, but we're learning how to be very successful in how to displace them. We're also getting better at working in larger accounts. There's more complexity in those deals, as you know. So even in mid-market accounts, as deals start to get larger, we're getting a lot more experience as to how do we position, how do we win over the engineers, how do we go and be successful in those accounts. And JP will talk about that. He'll also hit on a couple of deals that we had, so kind of some milestones for us. We had 2 deals over 500K, so those were Tanner bookings, so those were nice sized deals. And in one of them, we drove total contract value close to 1.5 million and total bookings over $1 million. So JP will run through that configuration as well too and show you kind of the structure of that opportunity. But this is real money. And the good thing is this is all new business for you. So I think this can be very attractive as we look forward into 20 and understanding quotas and quota attainment and driving new business. This is one way to help you meet your quota. And then real quickly, how do we do this? We continue to invest in the Tanner platform and building out our capabilities. But this is really about a flow, so we need to integrate with Mentor point tools. And so we've got integrations with Caliber, with AFS, Nitro, Oasis, Tessent, kind of the list will go on. When Jeff Miller comes up, he'll talk more about that. But we spend a lot of time looking at those integrations because that's what these customers are asking for. They're not looking for point tools. They're saying, hey, we've got a flow from our competitors, and we really, if we're going to make a move, we want to look at moving all the pieces. And so we've taken a lot of that into account as we look at this integrated solution. We worked quite heavily with Nitro. Mixed signal, very heavily dependent on place and route. We needed something that worked out of the box, had a very easy to use interface, and had a great QOR kind of first time out. We spent a lot of time working with Nitro to build something for us. That's a product, Nitro AMS. Jeff will talk a little bit more about that. I know you're all familiar with this space. PDKs are a big part of this. We spend a lot of time building PDKs. We've got a dedicated team in Taiwan building the library of PDKs. We've got some interpreters. We've got some automation tools. We've now got ourselves 140 certified PDKs with over 20 foundries. And last year we got certified at TSMC in their specialty node, so that's 22 and up. So that's kind of a big validation point on our tool flow as well, too, to get that certification from TSMC. Wrap that with kind of total cost of ownership leadership, and we were able to get 20 new logos in FY19, and certainly look more to having more success with you in this coming year. So next, to start to talk more about the market and then get into our product line, I'll introduce Jeff Miller.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I've been with this product line now for 17 years, and I've never been more excited about the opportunity that we have with our partner divisions, with our sister divisions in the IC segment, and all of the integration work that we've done to make this full flow possible, combined with the market factors that Greg alluded to. I think we've got a real opportunity here to sell a full flow at these mid-market accounts. So, starting with, how do we define this mid-market space? And, for us in the analog, custom, mixed signal market, we're really looking at customers doing analog or mixed signal design, and we're really focused on the planar nodes, so 22 nanometers and above. We're not looking to do advanced node at this time, but we think there's an enormous opportunity, and most of the interesting work in analog, in power, in mixed signal for the IoT and other markets is being done at these specialty analog fabs and at the mature nodes at places like TSMC. And typically we're working with small to medium design teams, so teams in that sort of, from a one-man band all the way up to teams with 15 or more people working together on a project. In terms of how to prospect, I want to encourage you to think about the portfolio of accounts that you work with. And because customers are calling and looking for caliber, or calling and looking for one seat of caliber or one seat of AFS, ask that next question. What is this going to be used for? What is the rest of the flow look like? You may uncover some opportunities there that start with one seat of caliber and end up being a real full flow opportunity that can be just enormously more valuable to you in terms of bookings and in terms of engagement with that customer moving forward. So what do these mid-market customers look like? I wanted to give you guys a sense of what kind of accounts we're engaging with right now and what those opportunities look like for you as an account manager. So these are some logos of companies who we've sold to in the last couple of years. And while they're not top 10 semiconductor companies, we've been able to achieve excellent booking results out of these companies, and we're able to do it repeatedly, as you can see with all of these logos up here. And while many of these aren't top 10 semiconductor companies, they are often household names in terms of being systems companies that deliver real products in this space. So a couple of examples. SRI, we'll talk about them in a little more detail, but the total IC segment bookings for a full flow displacement at SRI was over $1 million. General Dynamics, we've got a paid pilot program there. A new team is being formed to do RF chips for the military, and we're $65K, and that's just the pilot. There's enormous upside available there. Gortec is a Chinese manufacturer of microphones. And there, we were able to expand from the MEMS group doing the actual microphone to now doing the full analog flow, and that was a $330K booking to Mentor. So this idea that you can sell a full flow, especially in these mid-market accounts, and extract meaningful bookings even on a first order, I think is really important to take away from this. So what is our competitive situation? If we're going to go out there and do competitive displacements, you should understand who our competition is, and really it's Cadence. Cadence is the number one in this market by a wide margin, And so when you're doing competitive displacements, we're always happy to come in and displace some of the niche tools and Synopsys, where we very rarely find them in the mid-market. So really it's all about competing with Cadence and displacing Cadence at these mid-market accounts. And there's a real opportunity there. Right now Cadence is focused somewhere else. They're focused on their top 10 semiconductor companies, on the advanced node in particular, and that's where all of their R&D goes. It's where all of their support effort goes. And they are not only neglecting these accounts, but they're abusing them to a certain extent. Their customers are paying more every year or every renewal and getting the same old functionality. So there's just an enormous opportunity as Cadence is looking elsewhere to come in and make a real impact in this market. A couple of notes on the other competitors. Synopsys very much focuses on top semiconductor companies. I could probably count on one hand the number of times we've even run into them in the mid-market. So not really a factor for us, but we're always happy to go up against them when the opportunity arises. There are some niche specialists, especially regional plays. We see some Laker and Anaglobe, especially in specialist markets in Taiwan. We see JDAT and Silvaco in Japan or a few other places. So we can be very competitive with these third-party, third flows as well. But Virtuoso is going to be the focus of what we're talking about because, well, that's where the money is. So, as an account manager, there are some enormous advantages to selling a full flow, right? I mean, obviously, the first one is you capture the whole customer spend. So if they're not spending anything with Cadence, then, that money goes to you. And it also positions you extremely well going forward. When you own the flow and the customer's data lives in your environment, that makes you the default choice for everything going forward. And we've seen this multiple times where customers who start with a Tanner flow end up growing and growing. Mythic started with Tanner and Mentor full flow. We were the default choice and they ended up buying an emulator. We've got a number of customers who started off with Tanner and are now buying AFS to add more simulation capacity, or going to full Nitro to add more place and route capability. These sorts of things are happening on a regular basis, so it makes you the default choice to put these other Mentor technologies into the accounts. And these flows are sticky. You'll see that we have a process and we go through to do these displacements, and once we're in, it's very hard to push us out again. And so that's one of the great opportunities here is to get in and be nailed into these accounts in a way that is just core to the flow and allows you to stay in there and be really sticky with these accounts. So, and what do we offer these customers in context to this flow? Obviously, the mid-market accounts are often looking for these single vendor flows. They don't have the kind of CAD resources to invest that the larger companies do in terms of taking a tool from here and a tool from there and gluing these things together into a functional flow for these chips. And so having a complete proven flow where all the pieces talk to each other and having one point of contact on Support Center for being able to file bugs or report issues, get answers, that you have one point of contact, one way of getting support, and one company taking responsibility for not only the tools themselves but how they work together. And so this is critically important, especially in these smaller accounts without a lot of CAD infrastructure. We are native on the open access database. If the customer's data is in open access, they can have confidence that their data will continue to be in open access. And so that keeps the platform open, and it allows us to have a much better story about how their data will move forward. We'll talk about that in a little more detail. Obviously, PDKs. We have one of the best PDK libraries, except for of the competitors to Cadence, and that library is always improving. And the quality of those PDKs is unmatched. So we'll talk about that a little bit more too. Of course, we're leading with Mentor's strengths. Mentor is unreasonably strong with Caliber, with AFS, with Tessent, with some of the other point tools that we offer. We can use that to open the door and compete flow against flow with Cadence, and have real technical merit behind a claim that our flow is superior. If someone's looking at a single vendor versus single vendor flow, the sum of all the tools is what matters in that environment. And Tanner has a long track record. We've been in this business for 30 plus years. We've got thousands and thousands and thousands of tape outs in our experience. So And of course, you have the TSS team to leverage. So you don't have to figure out how to qualify, how to go in and engage with these accounts. We've got a skilled, experienced team that can come in as an overlay and figure out the flow, figure out how to get this thing installed, help you qualify, help you engage, and help you get these products deployed and installed. So here's one example from last year. This is SRI, the company best known probably for inventing Siri, the Apple assistant. So that's where Siri got her name, was SRI. And so this is the division that we sold into is focused on a military use case where they have obsolete chips. They need to build replacements for them because the old chips can't be manufactured anymore because military systems have long lifespans. So they go in and build replacements for existing chips. We displaced a complete Silvaco flow here from, sort of start to finish there. And that's, schematic capture, layout, digital place and route, standard cell library characterization, simulation, power analysis. I mean, the list goes on. We were able to sell essentially everything in the Mentor portfolio into this account. And even though the user count is small, we were able to get a $1 million plus booking out of this customer. So there's a real opportunity at what seems like a small design group, and I think that $1 million booking really speaks to both what Tanner can help you with, but also how Tanner can help you sell everything else that Mentor offers. So let's talk a little bit about those tools and how they fit together. So this is how we think about the Tanner-based Mentor full flow for these analog mixed signal customers. And so I'll talk about the Tanner products in a little bit more detail, but fundamentally I think I wanted to talk about the integration points here to start with. We're integrated with Calibre. We have a very strong interface to Calibre with the Calibre Interactive, Calibre RVE, these sorts of things. We have a very strong interface to the digital implementation flow, so we can run Oasis and Nitro right from within our mixed signal environment. Questa, we're integrated through the mixed signal simulation flows, so we can run the analog simulators with Questa and do co-simulation in order to deliver a mixed signal design capability. And so so we have a wide range of integrations, but the key Tanner products are these. So SEdit is our schematic capture, native on open access, integrated with design data management tools. So if the customer has their design data in ClioSoft or things like that, we can use that. You can use that. You can use the open access, and we're good to go there. To compete against ADE, we have a pair of products. So our sim setup tools allow the user to prepare their simulations, to set the parameters and set up the simulations, set up corners, do Monte Carlo, all of those kinds of analysis setups that users typically would do in an ADE Excel. We have those capabilities built into Tanner, and they are the equivalent of what the, say, AFS, Eldo, or T-Spice teams have built for their native interfaces. We also have Tanner Designer. This is a play to gather all the simulation results across the whole design, aggregate that data, and then present it in either its own UI, but also automatically export that data to Microsoft Excel for doing reports, for doing design reviews, these sorts of things. So this is a really powerful tool. It really kind of competes in that same market space as the ADE verifier. So it's sort of the set up the simulation in Sim Setup, analyze the data and results in Tanner Designer. So it's a two-part response to the ADE portfolio from Virtuoso. Tanner and Edit, this is probably the best known tool from Tanner. This is our full custom layout tool. It has, again, native open access database. It's got a full schematic driven layout flow, so competitive with a Virtuoso XL flow. Broad support for IC design, deep integrations to Calibre, to Nitro, and support for unusual geometries, things like curves, very flexible operations, and in terms of productivity, one of the fastest polygon pushing tools on the market. So really appreciated for speed of editing polygons, which is what the layout designers do all day. Then we have our Tanner Digital Implementer portfolio. These are size-constrained versions of Oasis, Nitro, and Optimus, which are limited to 75,000 digital instances per license. So you can stack those licenses up to 300K. So for customers doing small-scale digital implementation, analog on top type designs, we've got a dedicated digital implementation, RTL to GDS flow, built from an easy user interface built into their custom design layout tool, Edit, and allows them to, without having a whole lot of knowledge and without writing any scripting, without any of that stuff, to run the Nitro reference flow and get a design right back into Edit. So users don't, it's a much easier way to get Nitro into a customer for these small scale designs, and just get out of the box QOR based on basically a GUI, click, 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 click wizard, which is really nice. So one of the things I wanted to address head on here is, Tanner has a long history on Windows, and we also have a history on Linux, and I think it's not as well known as we would like it to be that Tanner runs on Linux. So you can see here, I've got Edit up here, running a DRC check in Calibre. This is all running on one Linux machine, and the same thing here. Sedit, running AFS and cross-probing to EasyWave, all on Linux. So we have, not only do we have a Linux product, it's becoming more and more an important part of our portfolio. It's what we lead with, and it's what a number of our new customers in the last year have chosen to adopt. So this is tape-out proven. This has been used by a range of customers now on the Linux platform. So we also continue to support Windows, and for many customers this can be a very positive thing, especially for new installs, systems companies, places like that where they don't have a lot of existing Linux infrastructure. Windows can be a nice advantage for us. And we keep all of those integration points when we move to Windows. So even if you're using Tanner on Windows, you can be leveraging Calibre, Oasis, Nitro, AFS, all of these, Eldo, EasyWave, all of these tools on Linux, and you still get all of the cross-probing functionality, all of the integration functionality. It all works exactly the same regardless of whether you take Tanner and put it on Windows or Linux. So this enables an architecture where people have Windows on their laptops and compute servers in the back room, and it all just works nice and seamlessly, and customers really appreciate that. So a couple of more of the integration points. I think we've covered many of these, but full integration to Calibre Interactive and RVE. We've got excellent interfaces to AFS, to Eldo and EasyWave. We've got the digital flow integrations, the RTL to GDS tools, Oasis and Nitro, and design data management interfaces. We've got partnerships with ClioSoft and Subversion, and in our next release we'll have IC Manage and Perforce support as well. So one of the big things that Greg touched on and I've touched on a little bit earlier was PDKs. And so I think for those of you who have tried to sell into this custom IC space before, you've probably run into PDKs as one of the key elements of what makes an analog design experience. And so the PDKs go way beyond just what's in open access. There's an enormous amount of value that the foundries provide to their customers, and it's actually written, they're writing code, have generators for things like parameterized cells and callbacks and things like that. So they're customizing the environment and building something that really enhances an analog designer's productivity. We have put a huge amount of effort into this, and a lot of that effort comes into actual software that we've written that allows us to automatically convert or utilize PDKs that were written for other vendors' tools. So we can take Cadence PDKs and convert them to Tanner PDKs. We can take Synopsys iPDKs and convert them to Tanner PDKs in partnership with the foundries. Then we have an enormous automated QA flow that allows us to go through and make sure that these PDKs are absolutely identical in terms of the geometry they generate, in terms of the callback parameters, in terms of all of these things to what is provided by the foundries on the Cadence flow. We take that data back to the foundry, they certify it, and they deliver these PDKs to their customers. And as mentioned earlier, we've done this in the last year with more than 20 foundries on a wide range of nodes. So that broad library of PDKs, but also the ability to enable them fast, really makes a huge difference for us. So when we talk about foundries, the foundries we work with and the customers who have worked with us on those foundries, we pulled a selection here, but we've had tape outs on every node from 0.5 micron down to 22 nanometer at a broad range of fabs. Some highlights here, TSMC, Tower Jazz, and X-Fab are really leaders in this sort of analog specialty space, automotive, high temperature, high voltage, these sorts of things. But there's a broad range of foundries that we've worked with. And you can see up here, I won't read them all off, but we have customers taping out at all of these fabs. So not only do we have the certified PDKs, they are tape out proven now. So, one of the other questions that comes up a lot in terms of these discussions is, well, what is the process? The customer's got chips. They have old legacy designs. They need to move them over. We also have a flow for managing that process. And it is a process, but it's a process that we've done many times, and we've been very successful at it with a bunch of customers. I think, probably the greatest example is Mythic, where they dropped cadence for a Mentor flow mid-design cycle, and were able to tape out 3 months later. Now that is a very extreme example, but it shows what's possible. So, first of all, this, requires an equivalent PDK. All these migrations start with having the same PDK. We validate, then we convert the customer's design, basically read in the open access, and we validate this using Calibre. So we do a Calibre XOR with the layout. Every polygon, every vertex is identical. We do a schematic netlist export from the Virtuoso schematic and one from Tanner. We check those against each other with Calibre LVS, again checking every device, every parameter, everything is identical. At that point, the design is through. So this is mostly a validation process. It's something that we just go through, validate, make sure everything is clean, and that we have the design perfectly in our environment. After that, there are some other things that we need to convert, and we've got flows for that. So schematic test benches, the ADE states, we have an importer for that. It gets about 90% of the data in, and then we can clean it up from there. But it's an excellent starting point for the next design cycle. And that's beyond what Cadence usually offers in terms of that. Oftentimes users have to throw out those ADE states and start over with a new design cycle anyway. So. Simulator setups, and test benches. We have automated conversions for the drawn test benches, converting analog lib over to the Tanner equivalent. And then skill scripts becomes a bigger conversation. John will get into that a little bit more in the field of use. But that's a process where we need to go through, figure out, if they've got a bunch of custom skill scripts, which ones need to be converted, which ones already have an equivalent Tanner feature, and then we need to go through. We have an extensive scripting interface. We're scriptable in Tickle, C++, and so we've got scalable scripting support that's throughout the whole flow. It's just a matter of figuring out what needs to be migrated right away, what can be done later, what doesn't need to be done at all. So it's a triage and implementation process that we need to go through with skill scripts. So, just to sort of wind up my section, I think, Cadence, really uses Virtuoso to push a full flow in this mid-market. And we need to find, we have an opportunity because they are abusing these customers, big price increases, no real support. And, we offer a real alternative from Mentor. Mentor provides the best support in the industry. Customers would like to broaden their engagement with us, and this gives them the opportunity to do that. It's a proven flow. Native on open access, we've got the PDKs, and we have an awesome portfolio to sell to these customers. So with that, I'll turn it over to John Peloso, our TSS sales director.
Thank you. Good morning. Hopefully everybody's excited and awake. I'm not going to make everybody do calisthenics, so stay seated. So I'm John Peloso. I don't know everybody in the room. I've met several of you. New to the role, took it on about a year ago, so started bringing Tanner into World Trade as part of the SPO organization as an overlay function. So we are new to you, right? We've had independent sales processes, independent booking agents, all that kind of stuff. Now we're bringing Tanner to you. And how can we help you transact Tanner in your normal scope of business? So what we're trying to do and what we're tasked to do is to help you find new business, right? Mike talked a lot about the gap that we have to make up for the Siemens expectation, and revenue and booking is all new business, or a large chunk of it. So we're here to help you find right-sized engagements where Tanner fits, okay? So focusing on geo customers, right? We're not out tackling the advanced node, but there are lots and lots and lots of people doing traditional planar node, 22 and up designs in the analog space. So how do we find these people? Jeff talked a little bit about it. If we go and we peruse our existing accounts and we find somebody that only owns Caliber, that person's using something else, right? For analog design or whatever other type of design they may be doing, mixed. The goal here is to not only insert Tanner and get new business, but it's also to protect the Caliber that's vulnerable, that's just sitting there by itself, right? It has surrounding competitive tools that we'd like to take out and put mentor tools in. Okay, same thing with, do we have a customer that is doing digital outsourcing that wants to bring that back into their house? As Jeff talked about, our Tanner Digital Implementer allows people that don't have a background or lots and lots of digital experience to be able to get a quality of result that fits their need without having to go find a digital designer. You can take an analog designer and put this tool in their hand to drive to get the result that they need. And they have more control over what it looks like. Third are people that actually do own Caliber and maybe a simulator, right? We can go take more of that EDA spend from those customers and we can make them bigger and broader mentor customers. We do try to look for people doing big A, little d. So we're not looking for people doing GPUs or CPUs or things like that, but we are looking for people in the AI space or people doing small startups, machine learning, things like that. Typical targets are sensors, automotive. We do a lot of power management, which is very applicable to things like autonomous vehicles and electric vehicles. People are doing a lot of sensing on those things and their power management. Image sensors, high precision analog, A to D, D to A, filters, things like that. So what do we bring to your engagement? We bring AEs and we bring ATMs that have been playing in this space for years, and they bring expertise of the design process using our tool, and they bring the competitive nature of knowing what our competitors can do and how to do it in our environment to make it look and feel and be better than what they have today. Okay? One of the most important things that we do in the engagement is we come and we pipe clean with our evaluation customers so that we can show them their data. It's more real for them. So we'll ask for a piece of small design, we'll work through it, bring it into our environment, and show it back to them in their own design space. Okay? We highlight the differentiations. We know where we're strong. We lay landmines for the customers in what they're currently using. We know that they're using an industry leader, but they may not be as effective as they could be. So that's where we point out return on investment. We do things in less clicks, mouse clicks, scroll bars, keyboard bindings than they do in Virtuoso today. They have some muscle memory issues coming into us, but we do things faster. So we should point that out, and we do. And we also have the ability to set the expectation of how this gets deployed. We have the ability to talk to customers, and if we're dealing with teams of 1 to 15, you have a pretty good size of an organization to be able to launch through and roll out. So it's pretty confined, and we can manage that. And then we create the post-PO adoption path. So what is the steps to get this into production, and what does it look like post-PO to get that next tape out using our tools? So another spotlight that we would like to highlight here is a company called Thin Film. So Thin Film makes little sensors that embed themselves onto products for security reasons, tamper-proof, things like that. And again, here we took the entire EDA spend for them. Okay, we brought Thin Film from a consolidation. So they were using some of our MEMS tools here in the US. They were using some Cadence for the IC side of the business. They consolidated their group that was in Norway into the US. And at that time, it was a decision point for them. Do we go with Cadence or do we go with Mentor? So what we did was expanded from our MEMS background and took over the IC side from Cadence. And in doing that, it was analog, schematic, simulation, cockpit, 2 seats of layout, expanding the MEMS footprint, and as well, we drove additional business with AFS, Questa, and Symphony to bring in the simulation side that they needed to scale that. So Akil Jain and Robert, the ATM on the deal, Suvardeep, AE, and Jay Meng from the factory were there to support that customer and get them through that transition. Okay, so why do you care? Why is Tanner important to you as your business? So like I said, we're here to find new business and to help you grow the gap that you probably have in whatever number we're going to get. All of these were either competitive replacements, new business to mentor, or new business outside of an existing contract as a portion of an add-on. Okay? And we're talking real numbers, 100K and up in most of these. We don't have every large deal on here. There were deals that were not competitive replacement or in areas outside of full flow. But we're driving 2x mentor dollars for the engagement. So if we're booking $1 million, mentor's getting 2. Right? So this can help you fill that gap, not just in our tool, but we can bring in other tools as well. Jeff pointed out the PDKs that we do. A lot of these PDKs are XFAB. A lot of these are Tower Jazz, TSMC. I took a few notes on some of these items, so let me run through real quick. They may not be household names to you. SRI, we talked about military contracting. Radiance also up here for military contracting. Huawei, everybody knows what Huawei puts out to the market. We sold 5 sites, multiple transactions. It was a significant booking out of Huawei, but not all is one deal. Gore-Tex is high-end audio. FLIR is IR sensors and thermal cameras. So we happen to have one that we may be showing on our suite or the exhibit. Chip Cloud, Padauk is toy IoT. So all these little toys that they ship for kids that need some type of RF or communication off that or IoT access. Chip Cloud is an incubator, so they do service bureaus for a lot of people in China. That is high-end audio. Vathis is AI deep learning, and Thin Film is the packaging that I just did on the prior slide. So they're all over the map in what they do, but we provide a solution that works for all of them. So how do we drill this stuff in? So we're working with MCD to provide you with migration services for not the initial design we do. So we'll help you with the pipe clean, but if they've got a pile of designs that they want brought over, we'll help you and expand into the services realm for that. Same thing for deployment and configuration of environment. Sometimes customers don't know if they don't have a CAD tree or a CAD organizer, the best way to go make decisions on exactly what platform they may want, so we'll give them that guidance as well. Configuration, toolkit installs, key binding and other muscle memory. Everybody coming out of Cadence knows what this key binding does, and it doesn't do the same thing in our environment. So we'll help them map keyboards and key bindings to what they are more familiar with. Flow-based scripting, we talked about the skill that we will have to replace if we're taking somebody out that uses Cadence. We have our own scripting, and MCD will be helping us with that. And then review the potential for if they don't want any kind of CAD responsibility at all. We're working with MCD to potentially lead for startups, people that just have no infrastructure at all, what we may do for a hosted environment. Okay, so this makes it easy to adopt, safer to adopt for them because it's put in, it's ready, and then they go with it. So that's what I have. I'd like to introduce a video from Om Batri. Sure. So with John, I will introduce John Stapp.
Come on over here with that so I can do this part.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. We didn't script this part.
Sorry?
We didn't script this part. Sorry about that.
Okay, all good.
All right, so this was a little off script. Thank you, John, for being flexible. I realized that we probably should set a little context for Om's video. Over the last year, I personally went to India 3 times, met with Om Batri, I think Prasad Srinivasan's in the room, and Nilesh, Paldekar, I think I'm going to get that name close. We spent a lot of time calling on customers in India. We did an event in India where we brought customers, Tanner customers, one from the UK, from England actually, and did some talks. We had 300 people in the room in Bangalore, so to give you an idea of the kind of demand generation. So Om is going to talk to you for 2 minutes about his experience. But I think that hopefully the takeaway here is that Om represents the kind of target we're going after, new business. New business, new business, new business. That's what we targeted. And in India, we achieved in the last fiscal year about 8 times the bookings we did the previous year. And we achieved bookings in the last fiscal year that were equivalent to all of the bookings we'd ever done since Tanner was acquired by Mentor Graphics. So the success, although it's small in dollar volume, it's the kind of success that we think we can have with the rest of the World Trade Organization. So let's let Om talk about it.
Hello everyone, my name is Om. I am Territory Account Manager in India. I am going to talk about Tanner's success in FY19. So we have grown Tanner business from 50 KTCV to 400 KTCV in FY19. We have closed around 9 new logos. It was a very successful year for us. For Tanner. We started exploring market for Tanner in stub year 18. We had a lot of challenges to go behind Cadence footprint. We basically targeted companies, AMS companies, custom ASIC companies, turnkey design services, and also incubation center. As a part of success story, we have now 9 new logos, and we will basically proliferate more to get more new logos in FY20. We have a good plan for Tanner in FY20. We are basically looking forward some new areas like photonics and MEMS. We had challenge in basically getting behind, getting into Cadence footprint because everybody is so comfortable with Virtuoso flow, with availability of the PDK, and Virtuoso is so deeply entrenched. So it was a challenge for us to get Tanner business out of Cadence Spy. It was basically we had not just the issue of ease of use of Virtuoso or a coverage, but more towards perception battle. So we signed few finishing school, we signed few incubation centers. Tanner is being used by one of the top services company in India. Now the challenge is to take it forward. We got a great support from factory. Now we have a local AE also. So we believe that there are possibilities where we need to convert those possibilities into opportunities. We still have few challenges like Tanner doesn't support on FinFET nodes. There are lack of PDK availability, but factories were helping us. We do have a long-term plan for Tanner for next 3 to 5 years. We strongly believe that we can give a tough competition to Cadence. We are actually not behind for the competitive replacement strategy, but we are looking forward to have a low-hanging fruits where we believe that the startup customers, the IP companies are more inclined towards us, as we will be more closely working with them because they don't get great attention from Cadence.
Couldn't introduce myself. My name is John Stabenow, Director of Marketing for Tanner. I have some history with Cadence and Synopsys, so I've seen the competition fairly well. My part of the presentation is field of use, so it's a little bit of a good news, bad news kind of presentation in that here's the good news, we're in the field of use, here's the bad news, it's out of field of use. I'm going to do something a little unscripted that might drive my TSS partners crazy. Here's the good news. Would my TSS partners please stand? Brian, will you lead the way because I know you will, please. Sherry, Billy, please. And there's a reason I'd like to do this. And I know Kevin's back there in the back, and he's trying to hide. Deborah, Deborah, I didn't call out everybody by name, right? Would you turn around? Well, excuse me. So Deborah and I are good friends, and I'm going to take some flack for that one. Would you please just look at the audience? And I want the audience to understand that when I go through field of use, you're not alone. So if you're out there trying to think to yourself, how do I qualify this account? This group of people plus the factory, which is Jeff, myself, Greg, a whole host of people, we will help you. So first, thank you to my TSS partners for a very unscripted, that was a surprise thing that I'll take some flack for later, Deborah. You're welcome, Brian. So field of use, the criticality of the field of use is that you're going to be out there hunting for new business. And you want to know at some level, is this worth me investing any time? The folks that stood up, and thank you again for that, are here to help you be successful even in the most beginning stages of any thought process you have about one of your accounts, qualifying it to make sure it's in field of use. So while we go through the field of use, I think it's less about memorization. There's some key ones that we want to talk about, and the way we're going to talk about it is we have things that are clearly inside the field of use, down that green column. There's the caution zone. This doesn't mean it's outside field of use, but it means that there's probably some qualification that needs to happen. And then there's outside field of use. And if you fall outside of field of use, you really need to consider that it's outside field of use, and that means to us, this is a time we have to say, no, let's walk away. It doesn't mean you don't tell us necessarily, but it should be your expectation is that the BU and your TSS partners are going to say, you know, this is outside, let's find something else to work on. And we're going to do it with 4 categories: process nodes, design styles, tool integration needs, and then competitive tool use. So let's talk about process nodes. There's an easy process node inside field of use. If we have a Tanner PDK, and it's inside field of use, pretty reliably. With some exceptions, of course. But if there's a Tanner PDK and the customer, especially is a customer of ours, it's highly likely that from a process node perspective, it is inside field of use. We then got to look at design styles and integration requirements. We have on HighSpot a list of the PDKs that we have built in off the shelf already. Let's keep in mind PDKs are shipped generally speaking by the foundries, not by us. But if it's on the shelf, we mean it's on the shelf at the foundry available to be requested. Foundries that have an IPDK strategy generally are inside field of use, as long as they're not out there on the far right with the FinFET process. The IPDK strategy is the foundry's attempt to have one PDK that services all analog enablement. Generally, Cadence won't adopt it, but Synopsys, us, and others, Silvaco, Anaglobe, others adopt it. And generally, you can think of it as 22 nanometer and above, where the devices are planar devices, not FinFET devices. And that includes multi-pattern support with our integration to Calibre. So we don't have a native multi-pattern decomposition engine inside Tanner, but we have an integration to the world's leading golden standard in that, and that would be Calibre. The caution zone. ST and onsemi as foundries. They are not overly friendly to a customer who wants to come to do foundry work there and use Tanner. I would say it's something you need to talk to us about because it can happen, but it's something that requires a little bit of work. We are doing some work to try to improve those relationships, but please be cautious there. There is a GF RF process or a series of RF processes, former IBM processes in the RF space that are also in the caution zone. GF and the Tanner organization have developed a very good relationship. In fact, we did a reference flow at 22 nanometer with them, but we still have pockets of, let's call it pockets of resistance, so you'd want to be cautious there. Outside field of use is very simple. If it's FinFET, which generally speaking is going to be a 16 nanometer TSMC on down the process nodes. FinFET is not our focus. As Greg and Jeff alluded to, Cadence is investing everything in FinFET. So they're extracting all of the R&D effort out of their non-FinFET customers who aren't using anything different today than they did 15 years ago. And that's where our opportunity is. Let them focus on FinFET. There is some news, I don't know if Greg saw this today. Synopsys is focused at FinFET. They're actually abandoning the mid-market. And they announced today that Samsung has adopted them for 5 nanometer. So they're making some progress there. Their success at Synopsys is good for us because Cadence is going to have to choose. When you're out there hunting and you're thinking this might be an opportunity, Cadence is more likely not defending against Synopsys at Intel or Samsung or Qualcomm and is less likely to invest the necessary resources to defend against you in a 22 and above engagement. Design styles, very simple. Analog design is what we do. Tanner was purpose-built for precision analog design. It's our sweet spot. Analog on top design methodologies, so digital content underneath, but you're out of Tanner, taping out of Tanner. So that's a mixed signal design environment. Some of you who are in the industry, who've done full custom analog or maybe worked at Cadence, will immediately ask, what about schematic-driven layout? Absolutely. We support schematic-driven layout. We can compete with Cadence against the Virtuoso XL schematic-driven layout environment. And parameterized cells, we use P-cells, pi cells in our case, not skill P-cells obviously, but we support the whole notion of P-cell-driven layout. If it's on open access, it's inside field of use from a design style. If they need small-scale place and route, under 300,000 instances, inside field of use for us because of the Tanner digital implementer. There's some other corner cases. We've been talking about IC design, but don't forget Tanner was purpose-built for MEMS and photonics, even though at the time it wasn't photonics, and that's because of our native curve support. And there are customers looking to do MEMS and IC co-design together, or photonics and IC design together in the same environment. This is within our design style sweet spot. Caution zone, RF designers. And that's only because they're generally going to want an integration to something called Momentum or ADS from Keysight. And while we can integrate there through interfaces, it is the Cadence integration is kind of the easy button approach. And flat panel design. We do flat panel design, but sometimes the flat panels are quite large, and there are some tools that are a little bit more purpose-built for those kinds of design styles. Outside field of use, digital on top. If it is a large digital device and they want to tape out from their analog tool, that is not a place you really want to go play. Leave that up to Cadence to try to make that one work, because it doesn't generally work very well. And when I'm talking digital on top, we're talking large-scale digital efforts that are wanting to tape out in a custom environment. And then this use of mixed signal sandwiches, where it's analog, or digital, analog, digital. There's some gaps in the Mentor graphics flow in general that make this a little bit outside of our field of use for now. Tool integration needs. This is the list of what we do inside Mentor. Eldo, AFS, EasyWave, Oasis, Nitro, Calibre, Questa, Tessent. The two, and I'll go to the caution zone, the two that are in the caution zone right now are Symphony and Optimus. There's integrations, but in Symphony, I think that the integration's coming in the January timeframe, but there's still some field of use questions about Symphony itself, so you want to work with the AFS or the AMS, ATMs, our teams here, counterparts and peers. In design data management, CleoSoft and Subversion are out and done. In the caution zone are Perforce and IC managed, because those are still in process, but they're coming. Moving into the caution zone, the one piece I talked about a little bit was Keysight, Momentum, and ADS. This we can integrate to. In fact, we have a potential for a couple of RF engagements that will require it, but they will be used to, more likely not if they're Cadence customers, what I'll call the easy button approach to getting in and out of Cadence into the Momentum ADS environment. Outside field of use. If your customer asks you for an ACE, ACE Plus, or SDE integration, this is outside of field of use. We do not have a plan of record right now for these integrations. Questa ADMS is the same. We do not have a plan of record for that. If they ask for integrations to Cadence or Synopsys, other than through GDS2, the kinds of standards you would expect things to pass just fine, these are outside field of use. An example, I would like to launch Spectre from SEdit. That is outside of field of use, but that should be a red flag to you anyway, because Cadence is not going to want to sell Spectre into our environment anyway. But most of this is because these kinds of integrations require contractual agreements. The open door is what we call ours. Connections program is Cadence, and we don't have relationships with Cadence. We in the Tanner team do not have relationships on these integrations. The design data management piece, which has come up, is Dassault's Design Sync. We've seen it once, and we do not have an integration, and we don't have a relationship with them. Doesn't mean we couldn't, but it's not in our plan of record right now. So if you see Design Sync, just be aware that that's more likely than not outside field of use. Competitive tool use. If it's Virtuoso Schematic L, SEdit absolutely can compete against it, no question. Virtuoso L or XL. LEdit, STL can compete against it, no question. If they're using ADE Verifier, Tanner Designer was doing the same thing before Verifier was launched, so we do compete there. If they're using Verifier, we have a competitive answer. If they're using Virtuoso Digital Implementation, VDI, our TDI competes with VDI. Here's the costume zones. If they say Virtuoso Schematic XL, you really need to probe here, is it a heavy use of constraints or not? Many times they get sold XL and use nothing within the XL environment, so that's a good thing for us because they're paying too much for something they don't use. But if they're using constraints, we need to talk about that. The use of ADEL, XL, Explorer, and Assembler, which are the follow-on products, this needs discovery. We just need to understand what their expectation will be in terms of passing states, for example, over. So this is a discovery problem. Virtuoso GXL, it's a layout tool, the layout GXL. Most of the time people are using GXL to access XL, no problem. But sometimes they're using the fancy features. So we need to do some discovery there and understand what is it that they're using within there. Basic auto routing, we just need to understand what that means to the customer. If it's basic bus routing, for example, we do that. If it's a little bit fancier, you can see on the right in the red zone, we don't do some things like differential pairs or shielded routing, these kinds of things. And skill scripts needs some discovery. If it's not a lot of skill scripting, here's the great thing. Tanner is incredibly scriptable. From writing scripts to manipulate database, writing scripts to manipulate the tool, to writing scripts to add your own GUI elements or little icon boxes. It's like Virtuoso in that respect, only it doesn't use a proprietary language. It's either using Tickle or C++. So outside field of use. If you see Virtuoso Advanced Node Option, we don't have that. That means FinFET. That's outside field of use. If they use VSR for differential pair routing, those kinds of things, this is outside of field of use. There's a tool called electrically aware design. If you hear that, come talk to us, but it's likely outside of field of use. It's rare, but it happens. Heavy use of skill for scripting. I know Micron has 1 million lines of skill code. They were a great customer for me when I was Virtuoso. There's no chance they're going to go. How much time do I have? 1 minute?
3.
3 minutes. And then a couple other tools you can see there. So, you know, what we want to do is we want to make sure we get questions. So we have 3 minutes till the end or 3 minutes to...
Yeah, so we've pulled ourselves to 12:27 right now.
12:27.
3 minutes till the end of the session.
Well, let's have John come up too, because let's talk about lessons learned. First, you can read the lessons learned. Let's just go with it's discovery. That's the first thing. Having an evaluation plan is the second thing, and managing the customer experience. So before people start escaping for lunch, are there questions in the audience? Yes, Sergio.
So, quick question. You mentioned a 300K gate capacity limit. Is there any practical limit on the size of just analog instances?
No. We are doing image sensors that are, you know, quite large in terms of instance count and layout. It's not a practical. You can find the exception, I am sure, Sergio, because I know you well. But, you know. Other questions? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Unequivocally, yes.
So it's the same code stream. So it's not two engineering groups doing stuff. It's one engineering group doing one thing. We build on both platforms.
In the event that you do not have a PDK off the shelf, what time frame would one expect to
So it depends a little bit foundry to foundry. That we've got a core group of foundries that we work closely with, and that is a 6 to 8 week turn time. Much of that time is spent, you know, just kind of getting access to the data going, but we have a process that we go through. The customer sends the letter, the foundry sends us the data, we do our implementation and get it back. 6 to 8 weeks is a good expectation there. There are some foundries, you know, sorry? That's almost all of that time. Actually, the conversion is automated, the QA, and the QA is automated, but then we analyze, certify, work with the foundry. That's the, you know, those are the long poles in the tent, is the steps in collaboration with the foundry.
Why don't you guys come up here in case they're videoing us? That way the guy over there doesn't have to have such a wide angle. More questions?
So let me just
also John's got a question.
Finish up on that. So we also do them as part of pipe cleans. So if we're going into an account that uses a PDK that we don't have, we will create it for the pipe clean. So it's part of our process, and because we turn so quick, that's where we can, you know, leverage and show them the support that we would give them.
So these have been easy questions. How about a hard question? Can't be that easy. Okay, Sergio.
One more, John. Just integration-wise with Polarian and, you know, verification management in general, is there a direction we're heading on there?
We're going to look to Jeff for that answer.
It's something that we've looked at, but we don't have a plan of record on. I think it's something that we should look at in the long term, but right now we're focused on the DDM suppliers that are really out there in the IC space, so the Cliosofts and IC Manage kind of thing.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much. Really appreciate you coming to our session. If you have any more questions, we'll be around. So if you don't want to run to lunch right away, please come up and ask us anything.